Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and each week I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled to welcome today my friend and former employee, Julie Brooks, on with me. Julie, thanks for being here. Tell everybody kind of who you are.
Well, thank you for having me today. This was very exciting. This is my 13 years in education. I have taught a lot of grade levels, mainly third, fourth, and then, of course, I taught for you pre-K. I was with you for 5 years. And so now I've completely changed directions and I am teaching adults now, a cognitive intervention class. So that has been really exciting and fun for me to do as well.
So I've got so many things I want to ask you, but whenever I do these conversations, the first question I always love to start with is, as kids, we dream of what we're going to be when we grow up. And so does what you're doing now align at all with what you were dreaming as a kid?
Absolutely. I am the fourth generation teacher in my family. So my great grandmother, my grandmother, I remember her teaching second grade for over 30 years. My father actually is employed or was employed with Texas A&M University, and he loved teaching. He actually taught in the evenings just as a hobby. And so he taught accounting classes, auditing classes, and he did that just for fun because that's something that he loved to do. So yeah, it was never really a question if this is what I wanted to do. Now, in saying that, I was never pressured by anybody to become a teacher. I think it just definitely runs in our family to have that calling maybe. But so yes, I knew from very early on. I can remember going to college classes with my father as a very young child and watching him teach. And so I just always knew that's what I wanted to do.
Now, sometimes I often find that when people know that they were meant to be a teacher, they immediately have in their mindset as a kid too, like, I want to teach elementary or I want to teach secondary. And so I know that most of your experience is in elementary. So was that always kind of the goal of, I always want to be an elementary teacher? Or were you just like, you know what, I want to teach whatever, and I fell in love with elementary?
Well, I knew elementary. Going into it, I wasn't for sure what grade. So at the time when I graduated from Texas A&M, the degree in education was actually 4th through 8th grade. No, wait, that's wrong. We got to cut that out. It's 2nd through 8th grade.
It changes like every 2 or 3 years. So I don't even remember what it was when I got it.
And I went with that because I thought it would give me a more broad range to see what I liked. And then, of course, I found what I love the best, teaching for you. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. So.
Well, what I find most interesting about your journey and me getting to watch a little bit of it is I remember when we went to Webb and your experience was in teaching kind of the upper elementary. And I had asked you to take a risk and kind of jump down into pre-K. The time that I'd spent with you, I'd kind of seen that was a potential gold mine for you. And I remember you were like so freaked out. And it's so funny because I think any of us educators, when we do work in a certain area, a certain grade band, and then we try to go think about doing a different grade band, we all freak out. We're all like, oh my gosh, like, no, like, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to go, and I could be bad at that. And then I'm going to hate my job. And so when your experience in upper elementary, then I ask you to go to pre-K, like, what's going through your head? And what did you feel like you kind of learned about yourself through the process? Because, you really bloomed in that area too.
Yes. Well, when you first told me, I honestly thought that you had lost your mind. I was thinking pre-K, they're 4 years old, never have been in school, never been away from mom and dad. How would I adjust to that? And so the more I thought about it, I guess it started really, I wanted to show you, you think I can do this. So I'm going to show you that I can. And so that's kind of how it started out for me. And never in a million years would I thought that I would have loved pre-K as much as I did. And I think that that fit me very, very well. And I grew a lot and learned a lot doing that. And I am so grateful for that experience.
Well, it was funny because I thought you'd do well, but once I saw you in there with the kids, I was like, oh, I always love when people like even exceed your expectations for them in the position because you were right. I mean, it was one of those things that you could tell you began to find your groove and like really feel like a place that you were meant to be. And so,
Um, what I do is I teach cognitive intervention, and it's a
intervention.
program that the students can sign up for, and it helps them think about their thinking. It's basically kind of like a psychology type class and how to make better choices, better decisions. But something that I do want to say about teaching adults is that I at first thought, how am I going to go from teaching pre-K
Mhm.
students to teaching adults? And what I have found is that teaching is teaching. My passion for teaching does not change, based on who I am teaching or what grade level or age that I am teaching. You still face the same challenges as a teacher, I think, no matter what grade level that you teach. Things like, how am I going to motivate my students? How am I
Mhm.
going to reach my students? Am I doing the right thing? Am I teaching the best that I can? All of those doubts and that you
Mhm.
have as a teacher and struggles that you have as a teacher is the same no matter what age.
Yeah. I think you just hit the nail on the head. You're so right. It doesn't matter what grade or age or group you're working with. We're all thinking about how we can keep their engagement, how we can stay motivated and things like that, which leads me to my next question that I love to ask during these is that, I feel like there's so many times as educators and just as people in general, we compare ourselves to others or we have doubt start to begin to creep in. Like, am I really the right person for this? These other people do so much better. Like, what do you do to keep doubt at bay so it doesn't take root in your own life?
Well, like you said, it is very hard. It's so easy to compare, yourself with somebody else, and I'm, at least for me, I'm my own worst enemy.
Mhm.
I doubt myself and I criticize myself a lot. So what I have found that helps is I love to collaborate with my peers. And like I said again, no matter what the grade level, there's always something that I can learn from somebody else. If somebody has found something that really works for their students and for them, then I love to share what works for me. And I love to hear about what other people think and some strategies that they have because we're all in this together. So if something works, then we need to try it.
Well, on top of being an educator, you're also a mother and a wife. So tell me a little bit about how, I know people always ask, how do you balance it all? And so are there any particular things that you do that really help you feel balanced? I mean, I don't think any of us really ever truly reach a full balance where we're like, we're doing everything great. But is there any particular things that you're like, I really do this consistently, or I try to make this happen that help me feel like I'm trying to balance a little bit more?
Well, one of the struggles that I have had through my career it is balancing, but it's hard. It is very hard to teach all day long, even though I love it. It's hard to teach all day long and then to come home and have children that it's time to do school, in the evenings, and so I do school all day long, and then I do school all evening, and so it really is a 24-hour job, and so something that I have learned to do that I like is, well, for one, my kids are very proud of me for being a teacher. They like that their mom is a teacher. And I can relate well to their teachers
Right.
and what they're going through. And so it is very hard to take that teacher hat off and put the mom hat on. But, it's just spending quality time with them no matter what we are doing. We love to read together, and a lot of homework in their lower grades is reading. So it's things that I would be doing anyway, like a lot of moms do. And I just happen to be a teacher also.
I think it's great though to talk about how prioritizing those things, and I think sometimes as educators we forget some of those little things that we would normally do with our children because we're used to doing them all day at school. It's
Right.
like we don't even think to do it at home.
Yes, for
Well,
sure.
switching gears just a little bit, thinking about your own life and your path to where you are today, one thing I always like to do is just to reflect a little bit. So when you look back at the path that got you to where you are today, what's something that sticks out right away that comes to your mind that you're like, that thing right there really helped create the woman we see today?
Well, and this is the honest truth, and I'm not just saying this, but that was definitely my years at Webb.
Oh.
Has completely shaped me. I have done things that I never thought I would have done. We had such a family there,
Mhm.
and I loved it so much. And the things that you have pushed me to do, like using a lot of technology in my classroom that I normally wouldn't have, teaching pre-K, I probably never would have taught pre-K if it weren't for you. Let's see, and doing this, I never thought I would be doing something like this on like an online interview, and then writing our book.
Yeah.
That I think was the most significant. You have given me so many opportunities and pushed me. You talk about you pushing me out of my comfort zone time after time after time. And looking back, that has really shown me not only who I am, but and what I can be, and that you can do the things that you think you can't.
I love that. You're making me emotional too hearing you say all that. But what I love is that, you're one of the people that I really look back on and can see the risk taking and the growth, even when it was uncomfortable or different, because I think, change is always hard for all of us. And we all approach it in different ways. But when I reflect on your journey in particular, because you're one of the small group that we actually have all 5 years together. And so I can look at the growth, just not only as you as an educator, but you as a person, and to see kind of how you grew into who you were and found your voice and began to use that. And so, as we begin to wrap this conversation up, one thing that I always love to end the conversation on is that I feel as people, there are things that we hold really close to ourselves and are who we are. And so for anybody who might be listening or watching this today, if they were to walk away with one thing, what would your one thing be for them?
I would say that, and it fits into what I was saying earlier, you need to find something that you are passionate about, and you need to focus on that. You need to go beyond what you think you can do. You need to go beyond your comfort zone. And I think it's then when we push ourselves that we really find ourselves, and we find, that we can do a lot more than what we think we can.
I love that. And that is the best way to end this conversation. Well, Julie, I have been thrilled to have this today, and I'm so grateful for you. And when you said yes, I was like, oh man, I'm so excited, because I thought I'd have to do a little more prodding to get you to come on here. So thank you for coming and sharing some of your
Thank you
story
for
today.
having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Julie has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every